players, the personalities who come from around the world to play professional soccer in the United States.
In a world where some call it football, football, or soccer, they dare to call it foosball. One thinks New York is blue. The other thinks New York is red. Soccer in America from a German perspective. Let them put some sauerkraut on your hot dog and join them for the Schnitzel Boys USA Hour.
Okay, I'm riding solo again, my friend. My co-host Bjorn is in Spain, partying it up. It's 3 in the morning. And you would just piss me off right now because I don't need to be challenged on whether Greg should continue or not right now. I literally will blow a gasket. Greg is out, everybody. Greg is gone. He has to be gone. It's a quantifiable failure. We got grouped at the Copa America. He's gone. He's gone. Fox Sports, in their wisdom, if you want to call it, released a graphic that I need to Google. I don't know where this is, if it's men's and women's programs. I don't know. But pretty much it said the United States has hosted, in the last 20 continental/global tournaments it's hosted, the United States has gotten out of the group each and every single time except for this one. It's the only one. And it's like, woo, what a statistic. We got out of 2016 when we hosted the Copa then. We got out of the 1994 World Cup when we hosted then. You know, get out of the Gold Cups, the Nations League. I'm sure they threw those in there. Maybe the Women's World Cups, they threw those in there. But the United States men have never ever been grouped in a tournament that they've hosted before. This is a new low. Brought to you by one Greg Berhalter. Okay, crazy game, high energy game, shitty ass ref. But, you know, I'm not going to blame the ref. Was he a piece of shit? Sure. But that he wasn't really it today. Should Uruguay's goal been allowed? Well, if people are bitching and moaning about the Danish goal that was disallowed, you're not allowed to bitch and moan about this goal that was allowed. I mean, they're very tight offside calls. One went for Denmark. One went against Denmark. What people maybe thought should have gone for Denmark because the offside machine had it a toe off. Here in Copa, we don't have it. It was the eye test. And apparently Chris Richards' foot kept everyone onside, even though the entirety of the one player's body was ahead. I feel in the Europa offside machine that would have been called offside. I feel. But that wasn't it. We didn't score any goals. We lost 1-0. Panama did their job. They won. They beat Bolivia 3-1. We were supposed to win today, and we didn't win. And it's the big issue under Greg. Today marks the end of the Greg Berhalter era. I'm trying to be articulate because I feel sometimes I mumble. Today marks the end of the Greg Berhalter era. Under Greg Berhalter, in 6 years, we have never beaten a decent team, ever. We have inchwormed past our CONCACAF minnow neighbors. We have beat Mexico 3 times, which is looking like anybody can beat Mexico 3 times. Right? Doesn't that performance against Mexico seem a little silly right now, seeing as they got grouped as well? And they're in just a terrible, terrible shape. We were very good against a very, very bad Mexico during Greg's tenure. But when it came to actually playing games we're supposed to win, like against Netherlands or against Uruguay, 2 very good teams, they both did the same thing. They let us futz around with the ball for a while, but we did nothing when it came to the final third. We were not clinical. In this game, we had 4 shots in total. Supposed to win a game, and it's 4 shots in total. The Netherlands and Uruguay were texting. Marcelo Bielsa and Louis van Gaal texted each other. And they're like, this team is really proud of its very basic 90s Dutch tactics that Greg will not get over. They hold the ball, but they don't really have the talent to hold the ball, so we'll let them hold the ball, tire themselves out. And then we can just hit them on the counter. Because having the ball is one thing. Doing something with it in the attacking third is another thing. That we don't have. That we don't know what to do. Against Netherlands, we had nothing. Here we are tonight against Uruguay. 90 minutes, high energy, with the ball. Keep it quick. Play in transition. Nothing in the box. Nothing. Just limpy, wimpy kicks. You know, they move the ball okay, but they ain't Spain. I mean, the missed kicks and Matt Turner's distribution. God dang it. He is such a good shot stopper, but his distribution is so bad. Therefore, stop depending on it. Set your players up for their strengths. Don't force your nonsense style on them. That's what this 6 years has been about. And I, for one, am happy it's done with. All right? The first cycle with Greg was fine. I don't have any major complaints there. He took a very shattered program and slowly built the confidence back. We lost to Mexico the first few times, or 3-0 friendly, pretty brutal, a 1-0 competitive game. Was like, yeah, we're getting there. And then it tipped. The U.S. started beating Mexico over and over again. You know, we qualified for the World Cup. Barely, but we qualified. We beat all the Nations League games, really fun, crazy-ass games. But the reality is the control and the style of play that, you know, the whole, like, we need to change the way people think of U.S. soccer. It's like, yeah, you do your best, but the reality, it's too much for you. You hold the ball and you don't do anything with it. You got to score goals, man. I've said this before, and I guess I'm harping. I want this team to play more direct, and I want them to start scoring some goals. That's what we need. Greg Berhalter was fired from Hammarby for being too defensive. His team, Columbus Crew, won nothing. No Supporter Shield, no MLS Cup titles for 5 years. But they lauded his positional play. So he was hired by this national team, and the only titles we have are we beat Mexico. Big whoop. Ecuador beat Mexico. Venezuela beat Mexico. Everybody beats Mexico. Big whoop. But when it comes to the Netherlands, nah. They'll let us have the ball all day, laugh at us. They're not even changing their tactics and just get us on the counter because we're very vulnerable. Hello, Daniel Young. You're just in time. You're joining me here in the chat. I'm going solo. You're just in time to listen to a little bit of my rant. I'm raw. I'm emotional. But today was a big day because either we beat USA, get that signature win we're looking for and move forward, or Greg loses his job. And it's the second thing, the more realistic thing. We weren't, Uruguay's a good team. We weren't supposed to be in this position anyway. You're supposed to beat Panama and Atlanta. We didn't do that. So now you have to beat Uruguay in Kansas City. Big pro-USA crowd, the crowds they've been hankering for. And same thing, we hold the ball all day, and the Uruguayans just looking at us. The Uruguayans, they're just like, yeah, let them have the ball. I don't know, get them on the counter, and they did. They got their win. Easy peasy, easy tactics, checked. Greg has offered a formula in which teams can defeat us. Decent teams read us real easy. But under 6 years of Greg, he has never offered a formula of defeating decent teams. We can't beat Netherlands. We can't beat Uruguay. We struggle to beat Iran. People call that a top 20 team. I'm suspect. Same with Mexico being a top 20 team. I don't know. I'm suspect of that too. Mexico got grouped in this tournament. They got grouped at the World Cup with Tata. How are you a top 20 team if you can't make the round of 16? I guess they're just top 20 or something. I mean, how would Mexico do in the Euros? They would have been grouped at the Euros. We got Genwil, Bolandres. Even months ago, Jamaica nearly won against the USA. That is true. Genwil, if I'm saying your name right, please let me know. Or if I'm saying it wrong, let me know. Genwil. We should have been eliminated by Jamaica. It was that last-minute handball call. See, that's the thing with Greg. With Greg, luck gets us through. It's a lot of this passion stuff, and the players look like 11 individuals running around. Today was Pulisic hero ball. Again, why can't we fix that? Why is Pulley playing by himself in the second? What the heck's going on with this team, man? You're just catching me, right? I'm raw. But the Greg Berhalter era needs to end. Daniel Young, say it loud. Daniel Young says Greg Berhalter should be fired immediately. Yes. When teams get grouped, especially at home, you get canned. You get shit canned. There is this weird discourse online where they're saying, doesn't matter what happens, Greg won't be fired. Greg won't be fired. Nonsense. This is a quantifiable failure. He's been saved in the past. When we got eliminated by Panama in the Gold Cup, he wasn't head coach, so you can't blame him. When we beat Mexico, the fact that Jamaica almost eliminated him was just glossed over. It's a clue. Thank God tonight nothing can be glossed over. He lost against Panama at home in a packed U.S. crowd in Atlanta, and he lost against Uruguay in a packed U.S. crowd in Kansas City. At home. 2 years before we're supposed to host our big World Cup. You kidding me? Fire him now or else we're going to get grouped again in 2 years. This team doesn't play well under Greg. I don't want to hear it. If reports to be believed, they're buddy-buddy. There was a moment when Bolivia scored that right before the Uruguay free kick. Greg says 1-1 to everybody. He showed it. He told them, don't worry, 1-1, Bolivia scored. That shouldn't be a thing that we're thinking of. Why would we lean on Bolivia to beat Panama? What kind of mentality is that? And what happened 30 seconds later? The players got scored on a set piece. Now, I can't prove that had an effect, but that's mentally incorrect. That is the wrong mentality. Don't worry about Bolivia. D up against his free kick. Go beat Uruguay. 4 shots the entire game. Greg doesn't know how to set up this team to get attacking third moments. We've never, as far as I know, we've never scored more than 2 goals in a game. It feels like it. Here we got from Jean Wheel. Obviously, the coach is one thing, but what do you think that's lacking for the U.S. men's national team? Is that for real? Because don't worry, because Bolivia is doing them a favor. Well, that's what it looked like. Greg did this on the field. He said 1-1 to his team. Don't worry about it. Just worry about Uruguay. I don't like the mentality. I don't like it. What is the U.S. men's national team lacking? Other than the coach? Sure, the circumstances are crazy. The referees have been very anti-American. Call me conspiracy theorist, but in the first half, that ref was giving you a card. He's like, no advantage. I've never seen something like that. That is the behavior of a ref who's been paid off. And then when the U.S. had a clear advantage, you call it off. It's like, yo, dude, that means something to me. And on Twitter tonight, we saw the rounds. He was caught rigging a Boca Juniors game a couple years ago. So, this is typical CONMEBOL. You can't really lean on the refs. They are easily corruptible. The famous, I believe, Byron Moreno, who reffed all those weird games in 2002, they can never prove wrongdoing, but he also reffed this bonkers game in Ecuador for a city he was running mayor for. He gave him 20 minutes of stoppage time and waited until they scored a goal. Obviously it's rigged. And then years later, he was caught at JFK Airport with just piles of cocaine on him and spent jail time. So, that's the story of Byron Moreno. Referees from South America, especially a place like Peru, are buyable. Was he bought? Is it a simple case of CONMEBOL telling the refs to favor the South American teams? Or is it a simple case he's just that bad? It's definitely not he reffed a good impartial game. I know that's not the answer because that's not what we saw tonight. But refs aside, it's going to be a challenging game. You still need to win these. The proof today was in 6 years of Greg. Do we have what it takes to get a good result against a superior side? And the answer is no. Under Bruce, we could do that. Under Bob, we could do that. Under Jorgen, we could do that. Under Greg, we can't do that. I'm trying to think what's lacking for the U.S. men's national team. I think it's just a mentality. Are some positions a little weaker than others? Sure. But I don't know if it's any weaker than we've been in the past, to be honest. So what's lacking with the U.S. men's national team is a bite, a grit. the American sporting mentality. I talked about this in our last broadcast. Remember, Americans love the sports. They love being greater sum of all. They love being greater than the sum of all their parts. They love punching above their weight. They love upsets. And the old U.S. soccer teams had it in them. They went in there to fight. This team is soft. I think they need a coach who's a little bit more professional with them. Maybe calls them out a little bit more. Is a little harsher with them. Has more of a professional relationship. A few weeks ago when Bruce was interviewed on Kicking It, it was very clear that Clint and Bruce had animosity. Clint had a lot of animosity towards Bruce. And I understand that because a coach isn't supposed to be your friend. You can hate him all you want. He's there to call the tough shots and be professional. And should Clinton have played more and all that? Sure, I'm not here to debate that. But it wasn't buddy-buddy. Bruce was your coach. You said you go or you don't go. He yells at he rips you apart if you underperform. And he also sets you up to succeed, too. I don't see that with Greg. Greg doesn't set these players up to succeed. He sets them up to play the way he wants them to play. And he got this group of guys that'll do it. But there's also a group of guys that don't really want to do it. And Greg wins those battles. Daniel Young, Greg versus Bielsa, easy as that. That's right. Marcelo Bielsa, an excellent head coach for the U.S. men's national team, I'd say. But unfortunately, he is with Uruguay. Daniel Young, to be honest, this is a blessing in disguise. I wonder who can coach the U.S. men's national team. Yeah. I mean, here we are. I went on Reddit and pretty much I said, today is a beautiful day because either we finally get our signature win that every coach has had except for Greg, and then we go off in the knockout and we play against Colombia and we get in there and we are the national team we want us to be. That either happens tonight or Greg gets fired and we get a new coach, which is long overdue in my opinion. And unfortunately, Greg didn't pull a 180 and all of a sudden pulled a win out of his butt. The team failed because of the position they were in. And now they get themselves a new coach. Daniel Young asks you to know coach will be Gabriel Bolandres. Knowing U.S. men's national team, it'll probably be someone like Thierry Henry. Oh, I hope not. I've heard that before. I think Charlie Davies is like, we can do worse than Thierry Henry. It's like, yeah, but not a lot worse. I understand that the national team job is different than the club job, but a title-winning club coach should be a prerequisite to handle this job. If we go domestic, it's Wilfred Nancy by a country mile. I am not super excited by Jim Curtin or Steve Cherundolo, to be honest. I'm trying to think who else would be there. Maybe Pat Noonan, maybe. No offense to them, they're great, but I want them to still develop. I thought Jesse Marsh, which I believe was apparently pen to paper or close to it, before the players demanded Greg back, which is also a mistake. Again, the players just need, the federation needs to hire the coach. The federation is in charge. Sometimes the players don't know what's good for them. I mean, who's in charge? The players, the federation. The players want a coach because he calls them and asks about their babies. It's like, that's great. You have friends for that. This is a professional job. You need to be called and asked why you're being benched by your club and of that nature. But I'm not behind the scenes. I'm just ranting a little bit. If it's domestic, to me, it's Wilfred Nancy. I think he's clearing away the domestic front runner. But I'm also perfectly fine with them going for a pretty for a European coach, a real European coach. We've had 2 fake European coaches in the past. I'll get to that in a second. I'd like a real European coach, a real club coach that's been around. Again, I brought this up before. I'm a big David Moyes fan. He's looking for work. People are talking about Scotland. Maybe we'll go to Scotland. If I'm Nathan Crocker, U.S. men's national team, I swoop in, I grab David Moyes. I want to quash all the other names, like no Pep Guardiola, no Jurgen Klopp, probably not even Mauricio Pochettino, none of those guys. These are big name managers that are either retired, taking a break, or they're waiting for the next big club gig, which pays them 10 times as much. So that's them. National team coaches are just people who they get their hands on for the price they're willing to offer. Carlo Ancelotti's been hanging out in Montana, apparently. He has family in Vancouver. He is retiring. If I were U.S. Soccer, I would call him and be like, we're going to give you $3 million a year. You can live in Montana. It's a part-time job. We need you when it's national team time. I know you're retiring. Have this be your last job. Because, I mean, the next World Cup is hosted in Canada. What a great way for Carlo Ancelotti to do his last gig. Do it here, and then when it's retired, he doesn't even have to go far. He goes right to his little hut in Vancouver and retires. Now, this is a pipe dream. But if we were to get a big-name coach, I think that is maybe doable. Brazil couldn't get their hands on him. And I'm here saying the U.S. could maybe get their hands on him. So it is a pipe dream. It is a pipe dream. And the other thing is, will Carlo Ancelotti be any better? I don't know, but I do want to find out. I'd like to see that experiment. Let's take it David Moyes. Is he a super-duper winning, multi-title winning coach? No, but he's a solid dude who's coached solid mid-level clubs. He did well with West Ham. He did really great with Everton. He did great with Preston North End. He's a solid mid-level coach. And you know who dies for him? Tim Howard, Landon Donovan, Brian McBride. They die for him. They would die for that man. And David Moyes knows the U.S. player. He speaks the language. He's a solid, high-level veteran coach. And I think under him, they'd be very professional. I think they'd look good. I'd like to see it. The worst it could be is as good as Greg, I would say. I'd be very hard-pressed to see if it's any worse. It can only go up, I believe, right? You know. I know a lot of people want Tata Martino or Marcelo Bielsa, I believe, would be a good coach. I saw this list somewhere on some web blog and literally just Googled all these available South American coaches like Jorge Sampaoli and stuff. Yeah, those are good coaches, but a lot of them don't really speak English. And I do believe, like Bruce says, he needs to speak English. He has to understand the American player. And I do believe that. I don't think there should be a language barrier. And also, like Oscar Pereja is a domestic, but he only plays Latin players. He says American players aren't good enough. I don't want to coach with that kind of mentality. There is a thing to that, like with Tata. Tata only plays with Argentinian players, doesn't play as Americans. Why would we have him be our national team coach? We need a national team coach that's perfectly fine with players that have less flair. Let's just put it that way. So we do need a coach like that. Hell yeah. Here we go. Just to catch up in the chat. Jesse Marsh is like Nagelsmann with less experience, accessibility. Unlikable, but get the job done, I believe. Job done. Yeah, exactly. Daniel Young, to be honest, the U.S. men's national team wanted to pull off in England and have a miracle goal. Yeah, there's no Jude Bellingham on the U.S. team. His old teammate Gio Reyna was there. He gave a great pass to Josh Sargent. I thought Gio Reyna did pretty well today. Gio Reyna needs to find himself a club, needs to play week in and week out. We need Gio Reyna at his best. That's something we need, whether we fire Greg or not. We need Gio Reyna at his best. Bring in the chaos. Jose Mourinho. Oh, boy. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'd just love to see that dumpster fire. We could definitely do worse than Jose Mourinho. I mean, he's at Fenerbahce. It seems like he's willing to. He coached Porto. He didn't always coach the big clubs. He's never coached a national team, though. You know, and I think some players love him, some players hate him, I think. I don't know. It's hit or miss with the players. He's one of those dudes, so he was very rude to Brian Reynolds. He's one of those guys that never really... There's just certain coaches that now don't rate the American player. And a lot of U.S. fans are like, let's get those coaches that don't rate the U.S. player and have them be the coach of the U.S. men's national team. So the reason why I'm pitching someone like a David Moyes. He likes the U.S. player. You go on YouTube and find him, and they ask, what do you need? And he's like, I need Brian May. I forgot what it was. It was like, what does Everton need this year? And he knew it was a U.S. broadcaster. And he was like, we need Brian McBride. We need Tim Howard. We need Landon Donovan. That's what he said. Because those are players that played for him and died for him. And what about this for the next 2 years? David Moyes, head coach. Tim Howard, goalkeeper coach. Brian McBride, assistant coach. Landon Donovan, second assistant coach. How about that on the sidelines, huh? The American spirit, understanding the American player. Kidding me? A beautiful Scottish-ass accent. Sign me up. But like I said, I'm perfectly fine with them getting Wilfred Nancy in there. The dude is more than capable. Granted, Canada probably should have snapped him up, and we probably should have snapped up Jesse March. But, hey, we're doing it backwards. It's fine. They get one, we get the other. How about in the chat? Who do you guys want to see? I think Julian Nagelsmann would have been a great choice for coach, to be honest. Do I think Jurgen Klopp would do well as the U.S. men's national team coach? I think he would. The dude's a very inspirational dude. He's very tactically intelligent. I think he's exactly the type of coach that would excel as a national team manager because he's all about that spirit. And I think when you play with the national team, spirit is important. So, the U.S. has potential. We played high energy, and I was like, let's go. But I'll be honest with you. Did you guys feel that we were going to score a goal at all in that game? Just like the Netherlands. Did you feel? I felt we could have played for another 2 hours. We're never going to score a goal. We just don't have it in the attacking third. We should. Haji Wright scoring it up in the championship. What's the redhead? What's his name? Escaped me at the moment. Guy who came on, redhead. Josh Sargent, thank you. He's been scoring it up in the championship for Norwich. Brandon Vasquez scoring it up in Liga MX. He's not even on the roster. Ricardo Pepi scoring it for PSV. Flo Balogun didn't have an amazing season, but he's been playing his heart out for the U.S., so I'm not going to fault him. We got Brendan Aronson. We got Timo Weah. I know he was suspended. Timo Weah didn't have a great season either. But it's very telling that Flo and Timo were Greg starters, even though the club form pretty much should have been a clue that they should have been benched. Genuino Bolandres. I'm not American. I don't follow or support U.S. men's national team, but I didn't feel that. I was more positive with Uruguay scoring. Yeah, so are you saying you didn't feel like the U.S. were going to score? Or did you feel the U.S. were going to score? I mean, Uruguay, Darwin Nunez and Luis Suarez coming off the bench, they just have more clinical, lethal forwards up top. I'm not taking that away from them. But we just need a coach, a good man manager who keeps our players at the top of their game, sets them up to succeed. I hate to bring up Bruce again, but he kept it very simple. He's like, this is what you can do as a player. These are your strengths. And he sets them up to lean into their strengths. Why was Mike McGee a DP level player under Bruce but under nobody else? Because Bruce is like a player whisperer. Yeah, like just players play really well under him because I think A, he keeps it professional, B, he's got excellent man management skills, and C, he just sets them up to succeed. He's like, you can do this. So we're going to create a game plan where all of us do what we do really well together. And that's what we need. We need a guy who can do that. Am I advocating hiring Bruce again? He is available. No. I just don't feel revisiting the same coach over and over again is a good idea. It does wear thin. Certain countries like Holland do it. Louis van Gaal was coach, I believe, 3 times. Guus Hiddink was coach at least twice. Ronald Koeman's coach right now. He's been coached before. The Dutch rotate their coaches, but they're a tiny country and they kind of have to, I think. Here in the U.S., we don't have to. We don't have to. Am I super excited about someone like a Jim Curtin taking over? Not really. Jim Curtin does well with Philly, but he's never won an MLS Cup. And also, being good with one club, how good are you with other organizations? Maybe he's just really tuned into Philly. And maybe his office staff is doing a lot of work, too. I was really into Greg Vanney. Greg Vanney coached an excellent Toronto team back in the day, lest we forget. And his success with the LA Galaxy hasn't been amazing, but the office changed. They signed some better players, and now all of a sudden the LA Galaxy are looking really good. They didn't fire Greg Vanney. Greg Vanney's still there. Greg Vanney's the coach. And if the LA Galaxy win MLS Cup this year under Greg Vanney, then he's worth a shout too. Steve Trundle, he won a title with LAFC, but a lot of that groundwork was done by Bob. Am I super excited about Steven Cherundolo? Not really. But what I'm most excited by is someone who doesn't hamper them with these ridiculous tactics that are easily dismantleable by better teams. And I do believe we've been beating the smaller teams not because of our tactics, but because of our players. They've been able to figure it out. Ricardo Pepi coming off the bench and bailing us in Honduras. So many bailing. Kept getting bailed. Qualified 3rd place. You kidding me? Our national team should be able to beat our neighbors pretty easily. All right? I'm not saying walk in the park, but we should have wins, W's. And then we play Uruguay. We need to be able to punch them back. All right? We need to, Tyler Adams is running his butt off, but he's only played 90 minutes in a year, so is that super wise? He's never been able to integrate Johnny Cardozo right, even though Johnny Cardozo plays great soccer for his club. He just doesn't know how to get the best out of these players. I do believe that to be true. Let's hope all this nonsensical reports that he's not going to get fired no matter what is wrong. This is a quantifiable failure. Name any national team coach that gets grouped at a tournament they host that keeps his job. Greg's gone. Hashtag Greg out. Let's just hope the search doesn't take 13 months. We don't have 13 months. It should happen. Do it tonight. Call Greg, but you're fired. Call David Moyes tomorrow. Announce it tomorrow. I didn't feel the U.S. was going to score from Jean-Will Belondres. Yeah, me neither. Steve Bruce is available. Let me Google Steve Bruce's. How is he doing? Graham Potter's available, the young English superstar coach. Do I think he'd be great with the U.S. men's national team? I don't know. Again, it's an experiment. Now, earlier when I said we've never had a real European coach, what I want to say is this. Bora is Yugoslavian, but he's also Mexican. He's a dual citizen, and we got him from Mexico. And Bora is a national team specialist that did a good job with small teams. He brought China in 2002, the U.S. in 94, so he's a specialist. That's one thing. I mean, coaches like that almost don't even exist anymore. Maybe Hervé Renard, people have been throwing him around. I'm less interested in Hervé Renard than maybe most other people are, but whatever floats your boat. And then we hired Jürgen Klinsmann. Oh, Jürgen Klinsmann, the German national team. He's a European coach. Not really. He's European. He was a great European player, and he took over his national team with no experience, which shows you how the German federation can work sometimes, because so many coaches said no. But what we learned was Joachim Löw was sort of the madman. He just bait and switched himself. He was the face of the program, but Joachim Löw was the brains. And we saw that. And then he went to coach Bayern München without Joachim Löw, and he was found out. Philipp Lahm called his ass out in his book, being like, he didn't coach, like we had to meet in the dressing room beforehand and do our own tactics. And then he coached the U.S. men's national team. That's not European coach. When I say European coach, I don't mean a European citizen. I mean a dude who's coached at the highest level, top flight football. Football that we understand, football that we watch. That's why I'm clamoring for a good, solid EPL coach. Julian Lopetegui, I think, wanted the job. I'd love Julian Lopetegui. He coached the Spanish national team. He coached Real Madrid. He's coaching up a Storm these days. I think did he coach maybe in English? Anyway, to Wikipedia all these guys. But he's a good example of an experienced veteran European coach, Julian Lopetegui. Is he at West Ham? Oh, he was appointed West Ham coach. He's replacing David Moyes. How about that? My brain runs in the same spheres with U.S. soccer as it does with West Ham. Here we go. Steve Bruce. I like that this is the U.S. coaching hour. Steve Bruce. He was just sacked at... Where was he just sacked at? Yeah, he was a short-lived coach at West Brom 2 years ago. He's 63. We can do worse than Steve Bruce. Sam Allardyce was up for the job once. I'm fine with Sam Allardyce, Big Sam. He said his answer for the U.S. men's national team was because he's a specialist at bailing teams out of relegation and reviving teams. He says when things fail, you go back to basics and you work your way back up again. If he was the U.S. men's national team coach, that's what he would do. Back to basics and build something on this group of players. And I believe it would have a positive outcome. Give me Sam Allardyce, man. Why not? Why not? Daniel Young. Greg should not be allowed to travel with the U.S. men's national team. Back to the training center. Woo! You're calling for his head. You're calling for his head. Nah, the U.S. don't play that way. The U.S. soccer. I think he gets a few meetings. He gets a goodbye with the boys. They probably have a little dinner plan. I don't know how it works. Weston McKennie's going to go back and smoke hookah. Have his good time. Is the U.S. men's national team situation the same as the Italian national team debacle? Nah, it's apples and oranges. Italy is a systemic problem. Just like Mexico. Mexico is a systemic problem. And what I mean by that is the Italian players right now, they're in a transitional phase. I mean, the Italian players are not very good right now. There's just not a good crop. The player pool has been damaged. The Serie A has seen better days, and perhaps their youth, and they do a good job bringing in young players, but the talent just isn't coming through right now. Maybe they have to wait. Maybe they're a little young. Just like Mexico. Mexico's also systemic. They suspended promotion relegation, which is anti-competitive, and they create this terribly inflated domestic market where players cost $10 million between each other. But outside of Mexico, they have no value. No one knows who they are. So it's this giant fish in a small pond, and when the best get together and go off and play other teams, they're blasted away because they're not challenging themselves against the best. Mexico's had this problem before. Italy Italy just needs better players, I'm going to tell you. I know their coach was kind of a last-minute replacement because Marcello Lippi, not Marcello Lippi, I think Robert Mancini took big money to go to Saudi Arabia. Sort of left them high and dry. But there are good Italian coaches. I think with Italy, it's more systemic. The United States is excellent systemically right now. We got great youth academies. Kevin Sullivan's going to Man City for $1 billion or whatever it is. We got 3 players on PSV. We got 2 players at Juventus. We got 2 players at AC Milan. We got a batch of EPL players. We got a pretty dang good player pool going on here. And it's not ending anytime soon, I don't think. We still got good players. You saw Aiden Morris is going. More players are going to the championship to work their way up from there, which I love. American players are going to Europe, and there's a decent amount to choose from. Plus, we tend to naturalize really well. So, you saw Chris Lund there on the bench to be our backup left back. Our player pool is pretty solid. It's a quick fix. It's just get a coach who can get more out of them. I think that is the next step for us. We've got 2 years to the World Cup. Honestly, now is an excellent time to do it. It's now or it's never. Do it now. Daniel Young, the only problem I have with Mexico is the Mex Tour situation. I get it that Mexicans are all over the world and they want to play games where people of the Mexican nationality or ethnic group are. Well, they play all of their non-competitive games in the United States. If I was a Mexican-based fan, I'd be pissed. It's clearly a cash grab. Now, granted, it's good for the huge Mexican community here in the United States. But that would be like if Turkey played all their games in Germany, which they don't do. I think that's nonsense. Mexico should be playing its games in Mexico. But that's also the federation. The Mexican Federation and the Soccer League are essentially run by Televisa and 1 or 2 other, maybe 3 or 4 other big owners. They sit in a room. They're like the commission. And all their choices are based on their bottom line, really. That's really how it goes. So they design where players go. It's like the free market's almost not even a thing. It's an inflated market designed by them. So that's a whole nother issue that they need to address, and that's, frankly, not our problem. So let them be them. But Mexico playing on U.S. college campuses is unacceptable. You mean the College Station where they played the 100,000-seater? Yeah. I love soccer games happening in those giant college stadiums, by the way. They're like the biggest stadiums in the world. I love that a tiny town in Texas just gets packed by Mexico. Was it Uruguay? Who did they play? They played someone. Genuino Bolondres. Yeah, I don't know what will happen with Italy. Top to bottom, they seem broken. Yeah, it's a shame that they're such a proud soccer nation. They need to bring a lot of youngsters. They need to have better youngsters, and then they need to send them to Manchester City and Barcelona and Real Madrid. They need to go compete with better clubs. Either that, or they need to go to Napoli or Inter Milan. And I think they are rebuilding. I think the Milan teams and Juventus are trying to be better, and they're trying to go back to their old selves. And Italy will fix itself. They just have their own way of doing it, and they'll do it their way. Turkey and Germany don't really have a good relationship, from what I've heard. Well, the Turkish-German situation is very similar to the Mexican-United States situation. The United States has 40 million Mexicans, so they say. I think there's more. I think there's more. And I live here in Southern California. There's 3rd, 4th generation Mexican Americans. And I don't want to speak for them, but I'm sure they feel sometimes like secondhand citizens. And Germany, the Turkish have been there since the 1950s. They've been guest workers to help with the labor shortage, and they've stayed. And now they're a third and fourth generation Germans, famously Mesut Özil, but our current national team captain İlkay Gündoğan is a Turkish descent German. I've had a lot of Turkish descent Germans. Mehmet Scholl, I believe, and Germany and Turkey have a relationship, I think, like the United States and Mexico. For a lot of Turkish people, it's been amazing. They love it. Great opportunities. They make more money. But do they get treated like secondhand citizens sometimes by the culture? Sure. Mesut Özil famously said, "When I win, I'm German. When I lose, I'm Turkish." And I think maybe someone like Ricardo Pepi, I'm curious about his thoughts. Maybe feels the same way. It's like, if I win, I'm American, but if I'm losing, I'm Mexican. I hope that's not the case, because that's not the energy we're giving him, and he doesn't deserve it. But it could be something like that. So that's the kind of relationship. It's a very, it's a relationship definitely of convenience for the Turkish. However, are the Germans ever going to accept, Turkish and Turkish descent as one of their own? For the older population, that's a thing, but that's a whole other thing. So that's their complicated, entwined relationship, which is common amongst the world today, of neighbors and, the growing migration of just what's been going on. So Mexico should play games in Mexico at home and home soil, where they have some of the best stadiums in the world. Amen, brother. Mexico hosted 2 of the best World Cups. They got great stadiums. They're hosting a couple games in the next World Cup. But I'm not worried about Mexico. I'm worried about the United States. How are our stadiums? Are our fields going to be better in 2 years' time? Let's hope so. I believe they will be. And they keep talking about they said today that the Kansas City field is going to be wider 2 years' time. How? Those lines are right up against the seats. An American football field is almost perfect for a soccer stadium, but not quite. It's a little bit tight, especially on the edges. So some stadiums are better than others. Now, granted, I'm trying to think if Kansas City is a venue. Is Arrowhead a World Cup venue? I believe it is, right? Arrowhead is a World Cup venue. So I'm curious how they're going to widen it. I'm curious how they're going to deal with the grass. Very curious. Yeah, I was at SoFi for the Brazil game. SoFi, we're talking about SoFi in the chat. SoFi is a great stadium. They also have to widen it, though. It's a little thin. They said they will renovate it a bit. I don't know if they're going to remove some bleachers or something. Curious how they do that. Well, anyhow, I've been talking and ranting for just under 45 minutes now. And I believe I want to call it quits. We've had a great involvement. We're here after the Germany and USA games all summer. This ends our Copa post-game thing. This ends the U.S. involvement in the Copa. We have Germany still against Spain on Friday. Ooh, boy, that's a tough one. Spain is pretty great. Spain's going to hold the ball, and Germany has to play quick on transition and try to just get in there and play direct and get some goals. That's how they're going to play on Friday, and hopefully have the team behind them. Here we go from Daniel Young. Texas A&M had FIFA, Mexico, Brazil playing money to the college for student scholarships. Funding in exchange for the college station friendly. That's a good thing, right? I think it's a good thing. If you're on college campuses making all this money, it should go to students learning, right? But again, American college sports is a whole nother thing. I'm from North Carolina, and the head coach of the UNC Chapel Hill basketball team, I think, made $2 million a year, and the dean of the school made $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Who had more power, do you think, the coach or the dean? Are you down for the loser brackets in these tournaments now? Well, we're out of the Copa. And we're still alive in the Euros. We got the big game on Friday. I still believe Germany can win the Euros. Come on. I've one of my teams succeed. But the United States got its rude awakening that a lot of us have seen ahead of time. And you just can't ignore the signs. It's time for a refresh. It's time for a United States refresh. I'm Stefan Schnitzel. This has been the this has been the Schnitzel Boys USA post-game reaction. We will come back with some MLS talk. We're usually live on Monday nights. Join us in the chat. We love talking to fans. We're fans. You're fans. It's a fan party. We're a little raw. We're a little more uncensored. We're not soft journalists who refuse to come up with any sort of judgment. We do judgments here. We make decisions here. We are fans talking. Okay, let me grab my... What do we got here? Okay, we're going to do a new thingy thing here. How about... Whatever this is. What is this? Okay, this is called Rock. This is our outro music today. All right, everyone. Daniel Young and our new friend, Genuine Bolanders in the chat. All of you watching, you can chat it up with us if you want. For those of you listening on the podcast, thank you very much. Our next episode is Friday after the Germany-Spain game. My co-host Bjorn is in Spain, so he'll be amongst the enemy. We'll see if we can get him on. If not, we'll have to check with him later. It could just be solo me. But we are live after the Germany game. And later this summer, we'll be back to our usual U.S. coverage of what's going on in Major League Soccer. Okay, tschüss. Bis nächste Woche.